Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Bootleg, a Tennessean high school football show. Now we are in the postseason. Of course, you've joined us for the last 11 weeks. We're going to expand the show this week to kind of talk more statewide with the playoffs starting this week. Joined now by Joe Spears to talk about all 9 classifications. Joe Spears, welcome to the show.
How's it going, Tom?
Good, and again, this is going to be something different, something we don't normally do in the regular season. We're going to expand it statewide. Of course, you're watching the Bootleg presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans. Didn't say it earlier, but we thank them for their support. We can't do this show without them. Joe Spears, it's been a long 11 weeks. We now have all the teams for the playoffs determined. Let's just jump right in it. First, let's talk Nashville area. Let's go best games. What do you think are some of the best games in Middle Tennessee or involving Middle Tennessee teams in Week 1 of the playoffs? At least, where do you think, if you could go anywhere, where are you going?
One that caught my eye just because I think they're better maybe than their record shows. They just play in a tough region. Is Marshall County going out to Hardin County? I think that's a great matchup, and I think fans that are down in Savannah will have a lot of fun with that. Marshall County's played a tough schedule with Tullahoma, Pearl, and obviously Montgomery Central kind of standing out this year. And defensively, they've played well at times. They just came up short in those games against those 3 top-tier teams in their region. Hardin County's rolled through their schedule for the most part. I think that could be a fun game. Marshall County, they can put up points, and I don't think Hardin County's really had to play teams outside of maybe USJ that has done that this year. So I think if you're in West Tennessee, if you're down in Savannah, definitely go check out that game because I think a lot of points can be put up in that one.
Another game I'll point out in 5A, Nolensville with a losing record. I think they're like 4-6 or 4-5, something like that. They travel to Station Camp, and at one point we thought Station Camp might be the best team in that region. They finished second. They're hosting a playoff game. Don't look past Nolensville and their record. Colby Walton and quarterbacks thrown well over 2,000 yards. You've got Samson Johnson, a dynamic running back. There's going to be some points scored, I think, in that game. And if it is low scoring, I think that probably helps Station Camp. Game I will tentatively be at on Friday is Whitehaven at Ravenwood, and this is like a semifinal game played in the first round. Of course, TSPLA where the regions fell this year, Williamson County is Region 7 6A, and they go to Region 8 6A, which is your Memphis region. And it's going to be some interesting first round and some big travel first round and potentially second round depending on who wins for those 2 regions. And I think that's going to be an interesting game. Will Hester leading Ravenwood. Rodney Salisbury, great coach at Whitehaven. This is a little bit younger of a team that he's had in past years, and he doesn't really have the huge line that maybe we're used to seeing at Whitehaven, but should be a great matchup. Joe, I believe you'll be at Ainsworth with Baylor, right?
Yeah, that one should be a lot of fun. I went to Ainsworth earlier in the season when they played MUS. Baylor was their only loss at that point. And I asked Jacob Page kind of about that game, and he said, we want them again. Well, I mean, he gets them on Friday. Shamar Porter, his status is going to be up in the air. Obviously, he has that injury he suffered last week. I think this one could be a lot of fun. Ainsworth, it seems like they're a different team when they play at home. Their losses have all come on the road. They've lost to some good teams, but when they're at home, they play well. I mean, they beat up on MUS, and then last week they it looked like they really controlled that game against Briarcrest, ending their undefeated regular season. So that should be a lot of fun. Baylor's they've taken some lumps lately. They lost to Father Ryan last week, a good Father Ryan team. So I think Ainsworth is in a really good position here to get that revenge that they've talked about.
Yeah, Ainsworth needed that win, I think, to go into the playoffs there with a little bit of an uptick there, playing a Baylor team that's kind of maybe on a downward spin, you might say. So that's an interesting game there. So we're going to jump right into it. We're going to start talk about all 9 classifications. We'll go 1A through 6A, then the 3 D2s, and we're going to go and talk about who we think are the 2, 3, 4 teams that we think that need to be considered for state championship contenders. So we're gonna start with 1A. Joe, I'm gonna let you start it up.
Yeah, I mean, you look at 1A, obviously you have the defending champions, Fayetteville. They're going to be right there. I'm not sure what the status of KJ Jackson's going to be. He didn't really play the last couple games of the season. Not sure if it was injury or what was going on there. But they overall, they just have a great team. They got the one loss to a 4A school. Nothing to hang their heads out about that. Really didn't have any issues with their season. Then you look at the number one team in Class A, McKenzie. Marquez Taylor, he's getting some SEC looks. He's a great running back. Only a junior. He's really leading the Rebels this year, and they haven't had any issues. I think they've maybe played a couple one-score games. I think one score against Dresden. Then Peabody. They lost 2 weeks ago to Huntingdon. It's a good Huntingdon team. That's not a bad loss. Honestly, if you talk to Coach Shane Jacobs about that, he's not going to hang his head about it. I think that's going to help him, honestly, going forward. So you look at those three teams, and then South Pitt, obviously, they made the championship game last year as well. So I think it's really a 4-horse race between those 4 teams. Fayetteville, to me, it seems like they would be the favorite, especially if KJ Jackson's healthy.
KJ did play Friday night. I got those stats on Sunday. He did run the ball some, I believe, from what I saw. So it looks like he's good for the postseason. I agree with those 4 teams. South Pitt, I think, is, unless I don't want to jinx them. Well, maybe I do. I don't know. South Pitt, I think, rolls to the championship game. I think the West bracket is very, very heavy with 3 teams that are very qualified for not only getting the championship game, but winning it. I think you hit it on the nose there. Fayetteville, McKenzie, Peabody, whatever order you like. I'm like you. I kind of like Fayetteville to win that one, especially. I mean, they played so well without KJ Jackson, and now they get him back. They've got quarterbacks played really well. They got a couple running backs that can run the ball. I like Fayetteville to win this game.
And they would host McKenzie and Peabody, so that's a big advantage for them. They don't have to travel.
McKenzie would be quarterfinals. Peabody would be semifinals if they played.
Correct.
Is that right?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. That would be 2 big games, and I know Fayetteville's a haul down there, but I would think there's a good chance one of us may be down there for one of those games. If not, we might call in the services of Mr. Gerard Hamilton, our Jackson Sunrider, to go down there for one of those games, maybe that semifinal game. But we'll see what happens there as we go on. 2A, I think I'll start with this. I think Meigs is probably your favorite. But I think Marion County is in that league too. You got to throw that in there. Then I think you look at Trousdale and Watertown. Help me out. Who's the best in the West?
I would go with Ty Simpson's Westview Chargers.
Good choice.
I think they're right up there.
Who, if it's not tied, any idea who it would be?
MAHS with Cam Miller. I think they would play. If both win their first 2 rounds, they would play in the quarterfinals, which that would be a fun matchup there. For me, I mean, my favorite, I know Meigs has been the last 2 AA state championships. I'm going to go with Ty Simpson in Westview. Ty's been playing out of his mind this year. And you kind of hit it there. Trousdale, they're there, but they would play Meigs in the second round after that loss to Watertown last week. Watertown's playing really well. So that's kind of a top-heavy half of the bracket. On the bottom half, Westview, MAHS, and Huntingdon. Huntingdon's playing really well as well. But I think for me, I mean, my favorite would probably be Westview because of Ty Simpson.
I think Ty Simpson, an Alabama 4-star commitment, playing in a state championship game would probably draw a lot of people to Chattanooga for the championship game.
Absolutely.
3A. It's whoever wants to finish second to Alcoa, isn't it?
It seemed like that the last couple of years, and I mean,
last 6 years. That's what it's been, right?
Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of looking that way now. But I think here in Nashville, we got some teams. Not saying they could beat Alcoa because not many teams. Maryville right now is the only team that's shown that they can beat Alcoa. I mean, I look at Whitehouse. They got a lot of dynamic weapons. Raymond Blackburn, Reese McAfee. And the team I saw last Friday, I'm not sure they would have to host all the way through. The East Nashville Eagles can play, man. That defense is nasty. They're getting healthy on offense. They got some weapons there. I think they could make a good little run. That schedule, like I wrote about, it's prepared them. I mean, they've played a brutal schedule. Don't look at their record. They're 6-4. All those 4 losses are to really good teams. And then Waverly. I mean, we're going to talk about Waverly, aren't we? I mean, the Tigers are having a heck of a year. They get to host a playoff game somewhere. We're not sure where
to. By the way, they will be hosting at Dixon County.
It is at Dixon. Wow, okay. Jacob Dooley's leading them. They've only got that one loss to Whitehouse. So I think you look at those 3 Nashville area teams, I think all of them can make a run. And out west, you got Covington and Dyersburg. Dyersburg won that matchup. They're undefeated. They also beat up on Dyer County in a game. I did not expect to see that sort of score. But, I mean, out west, you got Covington and Dyersburg. So I think you got teams here in middle and out west that could compete. But until somebody beats Alcoa, I'm not going to bet against Alcoa.
And hey, if it's any solace, for years I've been told that the silver ball it costs more than the gold ball. Don't ask me how, but I guess silver is more expensive than gold. But
I guess so.
I'm like you. I just think Alcoa and that's not meant any disrespect to Dyersburg, Covington, East Nashville, Waverly, Whitehouse, everyone else. I just think it's until someone in 3A can beat Alcoa, it's the Alcoa bracket. You know, it's the Alcoa. It's class Alcoa because they win it every time. And Gary Rankin just looked it up today. Gary Rankin has won 16 state titles, working on number 17, and it would be the 7th straight state title for Alcoa.
Absurd.
In 4A, and I'll start with this. I've got a bunch of teams listed in the 4A because I think the west part is going to be wide open in 4A. I think the east is pretty easy to determine. I think it's Greenville or Elizabethton. I think the only loss to Elizabethton has is to Greenville. Greenville has soared through the 4A bracket or 4A season. They're 10-0, putting up a ton of numbers. I think Elizabethton's still in that hunt there. But in 4A, help me out if I missed anyone. I mean, here's who I think could make a run. Hardin County, Haywood, Pearl, and let's not forget Tullahoma 10-0. Those are the 4 that I have right now that can make that I would put on as a possible. I wouldn't be surprised if they were playing in Cookeville or Chattanooga.
I would not either. Like you said, I mean, you got 3 undefeated teams there in Haywood, Hardin County, and Tullahoma. Start with Haywood. They would be my picks to come out of the West. Personally, I think they're loaded. Jalen Lewis, an Arkansas commitment, he's playing really well. Jakylan Taylor at running back, he's played great for the Tomcats this year. Really, he's kind of gotten bigger and faster. He's got over 20 rushing touchdowns. Then they got a lot of other guys that are getting D1 looks as well. I mean, this might be the most complete team they've had, and it might be better than that team that made it to the 2018 state championship. They've got all the pieces. They have not been tested I mean, Lexington gave them a little bit of a game. It was kind of a sloppy game. Outside of that, they haven't had any game that was decided by 1 possession or less. They've rolled through their schedule. Hardin County, Caden Pope, he's done really well on both sides of the ball. He's a 3-star guy. Does it all for the Tigers. And they're 10-0. They got a young quarterback that's playing well. Like you said, Pearl. I mean, as long as Barry and Brown's healthy, it's hard to bet against the Firebirds. I mean, I saw him almost lead them to a win over Tullahoma. And Tullahoma, Ryan Scott, and the Wildcats are just playing well. So my personal pick out of that would probably be Haywood. I think they're probably the most complete team. But like you said, that west side of the bracket is wide open with those 4. And then on the east side, I'd agree. Greenville's just kind of dominated everybody. They cruised in their win over Elizabethton earlier in the year. So I think if they played again, it'd be a closer game. I'd still pick Greenville, though.
All right, next class, 5A. This might be, if I was a gambling man, and I'm not, I would say that 5A may be the most wide open on both sides of any bracket out there. I think it's from east to west. It is wide open who wins that game. I mean, who do you think could be there?
You look at the west side of the bracket. I mean, I would be looking at teams like Page, and as surprising as this may sound, because it's only their second year, Green Hill. Green Hill's played really well. They're playing with a lot of momentum. They beat Mount Juliet. Came back to win that game on Friday. The Hawks are playing with a lot of momentum, but I would think Page on this side of the bracket, Jake McNamara, their only loss is to Independence, a 6A school, so it's not a bad loss. And then, man, on the west side of the bracket, that's tough. I mean, because you look at what Powell and West have done this year, and obviously Central's there as well. I would go with Powell. I think they got too many stars. Walter Nolan has played great for them this season. Jordan Potts, he's played incredibly well also. So if I was to go with a team overall, like he said, it's just wide open. I would think maybe Powell, but I'm not confident on that because there are so many good teams in 5A this year.
Yeah, I think Powell, West, Central, then you got Page, Memphis Central, Munford, Springfield. Green Hill is on a tear right now, which I think maybe they're maybe a little early for them, but would it absolutely surprise me? Not the way that 5 bracket looks like. I think the 5A bracket is just different. I don't think there's just a clear cut. This is my team. I mean, I can go through probably every other bracket and say, I'll put money on this team if I was a betting man. I won't do that in 5A. It's just too wide open. I think it could go so many different ways, especially when you think about upsets, potential upsets with some of these matchups. So 5A, wide open. 6A, I think it goes from about 7 to 8 teams in 5A to 3 in 6A that can win it.
Yeah, I mean, those teams obviously Oakland, Maryville, and the new kid to the block, Summit. They're playing well. I think if you look out west, maybe Collierville, they're undefeated. They're playing really well. They got a tough first-round matchup, though. They host Independence. Independence team is no slouch, but the 3 favorites are Oakland, Maryville, and Summit. Oakland Summit would be my finals pick, and I think, going into the year, Oakland's played. We knew what Oakland was going to be. It was kind of a question of we knew how good Summit could be with the talent they had. How are they going to fare in 6A? Well, they haven't really been tested. They're just kind of cruising in a really tough region. I mean, you saw them against a really good Ravenwood team and saw what they did to that defense. So that an Oakland Summit final would be a lot of fun. And a Summit Maryville final. I mean, Oakland has to go to Maryville for the semifinals this year. One team maybe to keep an eye on. I know Oakland beat them week 1, but Hendersonville, I think they could make a run to the semifinals. I think they could make a lot of noise. They're playing really well right now. But like you said, the 3 are Oakland, Maryville, and Summit.
Yeah, and Maryville, here's the thing with Maryville. Everyone likes to think about Oakland, defending state champs. I don't have this number ahead of me, but people would have to look it up. When's the last time Maryville went back-to-back years without making it to the championship game, let alone winning it? And also, I mean, Maryville does not lose at home in the playoffs, so that's going to be a big thing for Oakland. Is probably they're probably going to have to get to the final. I would be shocked if it's not an Oakland Maryville semifinal, and that would be played at Shield Stadium. That's a tough place to win if you're on the road.
Agreed.
But I like Summit. I'm gonna tell you, I'm right now. I'm pondering if Summit isn't the best team in 6A right now.
Agreed.
Hopefully, my Oakland friends are not listening to this at this particular moment, and maybe they're joining in right about now. So, moving on to Division 2 Single A. I think this is pretty cut and dry. I think you got 3 teams that can win it, and I think it's DCA, Nashville Christian, and USJ. Am I wrong, Joe?
I think you're correct. With Davidson Academy moved up to D2AA this year, I think those are the 3 favorites. I mean, you saw DCA, Nashville Christian kind of in a defensive slugfest. I think if those teams played again, maybe some more points would be scored. I don't know if weather played a factor in that or not, but yeah, I think Nashville Christian, they're on the side of the bracket where I think they should make that run to the state title game. DCA is going to have a lot tougher. They're going to have a tougher task there. I mean, they're going to have USJ waiting for them in the semifinals, kind of like last year. USJ, for fans here in Middle Tennessee that may not know, Steele Haynes, their running back, has had an incredible season. Probably one of the best in school history. I mean, it seems like Steele's been there for forever, and he's really leading them. They've got a couple losses. They opened the season with a loss to Good Pasture. That was a game scheduled on short notice because of COVID. And then they lost to Hardin County. Hardin County's good. We mentioned that. But yeah, USJ's playing really well. That DCA USJ game should be a lot of fun if both teams win and get to it. But I think I agree with you. I mean, those three teams, my personal pick would probably be USJ just because I like what they can do on the ground, and they have that experience of getting to the state title game the last couple of years. They just lost to Davidson Academy.
I think it's those three teams. I kind of like Nashville Christian. Probably has the maybe the easier road of all of them. I mean, Middle Tennessee Christian is sitting in the is sitting there probably thinking, what the heck? We're a region champion. Why aren't you mentioning us? And and obviously they're very capable of upsetting Nashville Christian. But I just think Nashville Christian does a lot of the good things there, and I think they'll give them trouble there. And if you're Nashville Christian, I think you'd gladly take a game with Middle Tennessee Christian in the semifinals and have to figure out how to beat them than having and then if you're DCA and USJ having to play that potentially in the semifinals. So it'll be an interesting few weeks in Division II Single A, especially in that bottom of the bracket. Division II Double A. Is it simply whoever wants to finish second to Lipscomb the way they played, or is there someone else that can beat them?
I think you look at it both ways. I mean, Lipscomb outside of the Oakland game, they haven't been tested. Nobody's come close. I think that shows just how good Oakland is, especially with the way Lipscomb Academy has played this year. But I expected that CPA game a couple weeks ago to be closer, and Lipscomb it just didn't seem like they had any issues. Alex Broom really just showing why he's probably one of the best players in the state. He's having an incredible season. I do think it's the final again. I think Lipscomb Academy and CPA do play for the championship, and unlike last year where Lipscomb Academy won the regular season matchup by a touchdown, and CPA came back to win the state title in a classic, I'm not sure not sure anybody in D2AA can keep up with Lipscomb Academy this year. I think everybody's just kind of chasing them at this point.
Yeah, and two things on that. I think you got to throw Lausanne into the discussion there. I think they think they're pretty good. I think they lost one game, I think, in the regular season.
Lost to South Gibson too a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, if they can fix that, they'll maybe they're in the equation. CPA. Here's the thing. Here's the question, and I know this is what even talked to Coach Trent Dilfer about. When they beat CPA in week 10, the question now is, okay, is Lipscomb gonna get better from week 10 through until week 16? Are they going? And that's where he said that was their problem last year. The week off, I think, between the private schools have that extra week off. He said that week off wasn't, I don't think, as great a week as they needed a practice. Are they going to get better during that week? And how much what did CPA learn about themselves and learn about Lipscomb what changes can they make? Now you're thinking, well, they're 38-0. How are you going to make up 38 points? That's the big question. If CPA Lipscomb, how does CPA find 38 points? Difference. I think penalties played a big part of that game, but they played behind the sticks too much. I think if they get there, they can't play. They can't have foolish penalties, emotional penalties. They can't do that. And beat Lipscomb. I think they just proved that. They're going to have to ground and pound and figure out how to run the football effectively against that defensive line. And and Kate Law's going to have to make a couple big throws, probably to the Humphreys kid, London Humphreys, and a lot of things would have to go their way. So, but I think it is Lipscomb's to lose just because they have been so dominant. Now, finally, last one, Division II AAA. I think it's McCauley versus the Field.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And if you're looking at the Field, I think you really look at it, NBA has got to be maybe the favorite to be the biggest challenger to McCauley. They played the closest game with them this year. I know it was at NBA. Macaulay kind of won. I believe it was the last minute score. But NBA is playing really well right now. I think if any team could, give Macaulay a game and in that streak they've got going, it'll be NBA. I mean, we talk about Marcel Reed, we talk about Rhett Hales, and that offense, they can put up numbers. But I think the thing that impresses me the most about NBA is that defense, man. They're nasty. They kept a high-scoring Pope John Paul team to 17 points. They kept Ensworth down. I mean, they're playing really well, and they're playing their best football at the right time. I saw them against CPA, and you could see at times just how good this team could be. They had too many self-inflicted errors in that game that really doomed them. But ever since that game, they've played really well. And I think if anybody could beat Macaulay, my guess would be NBA.
And I think you're right. I think NBA going into the playoffs is probably there. You gotta wonder what Briarcrest can do. Can they fix some things and make a run after losing their one loss to Ensworth? Brentwood Academy seems to be on an uptick. They played a tough schedule. I think they've gotten some people back that were hurt early in the season. But yeah, I just think it's Macaulay, and whoever you want to fill in the blank, that's fine. But right now, until someone proves it wrong, Macaulay is there's a reason why they've won the last 2 state championships and are the favorite to win a 3rd straight. So it's going to be an interesting AAA bracket there in D2. Interesting. We've got some interesting, I think, classes overall. Yeah, there's some. You look at a Lipscomb and you look at 6A with about 2 or 3 teams. There are some that looks pretty cut and dry, but there are some very interesting playoffs scenarios where it could, where who knows who could make it to the final, and one little upset could really really make things really interesting across the state. So that's I guess one of the things I think you look for in class in the first round of the playoffs. Joe, if you had to give me one sure bet to win, this is the team I will say is going to win a state title, any class you want. Which one is the biggest sure bet to win?
Alcoa is the easy answer. I'll go with Lipscomb Academy. I think the Mustangs are on a different level than everybody else in D2AA right now. It would take a lot for somebody not named Oakland to knock them off right now, and they're playing really good football. So my lock would be Lipscomb Academy.
Yeah, again, I guess Alcoa is the easy one. I think we all think that's a lock. So outside of Alcoa, I'm going to say, and I agree with you on your pick, I think Greenville is probably my lock in 4A. I just think they have gone through the gauntlet and made it look easy.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, folks, it's week 1 of the playoffs. That's it's kind of the second season. You've been watching the Bootleg presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans. I'm your host, Tom Kreager. That guy's Joe Spears. We will be back next week. Going to mix it up next week. Kind of couldn't make it work this week. We're going to bring in more riders from across the state next week and really dive into what the playoffs look like after round 1. Until then, we'll see you Friday night. If you see us at a game Friday night, make sure you come up and say hello. We'll see you next week.